This is Get Real and Heal for high-performing women executives and entrepreneurs, where we discuss all things emotional healing and the relationships with yourself, your man, and your money. I'm your host, Jamila McMallow, wife, mother, certified cognitive behavioral therapy practitioner, mindset and relationship expert with over 20 years coaching and mentoring experience. I know that when you're the one that everyone else leans on, the leader and the trailblazer, it can be difficult to let your guard down, be vulnerable, and tend to your own emotions. So I hope today's discussion will allow you a moment to experience a life-changing realization, perhaps even a transformation. So let's begin and get real and heal. Hey, I am so excited about today's episode because I am sharing with you the keys to staying happily married. Now, this is such an important topic, right? Because, I'm all about helping women who are already married to a good man or who are single and desire to be with a good man. And I always make that distinction and stipulation because there's a lot of folks out here who serve a clientele that are kind of like on the revolving door of toxic relationships. And that's not what I do. I'm never going to give you advice to help you figure out how to navigate and stay in a relationship that's unhealthy. And so that's why I make that stipulation, because there are a lot of women who are actually married to good men, meaning men who are not toxic, who are not abusing them, who are not taking advantage of them in any way, but they still feel this sense of like not being fulfilled or satisfied in some way, and they can't put their finger on it. And so I love serving them because I'm able to really help them do their work, their emotional work, their healing work, their mindset work, so that they're able to see just the wonderful, incredible blessing that they have. And oh my goodness, when their eyes are open, they're like, oh, because sometimes they'll go other places and get bad advice, like, oh, you should just get a divorce. And they could have potentially lost someone that turned out to actually be the love of their life. They just couldn't really see him clearly through the filters of their trauma, of their background, etc., etc. So that's why I think this topic is so important. And especially for those ladies who are single and looking for love, because again, with the single ladies that I serve, they are just killing it professionally. Like they are out there doing the thing, whether in corporate or whether in business, they know how to make money. They're already successful. They know how to get stuff done. They just can't figure out how to create that same success in their personal life. And so that's where I come in and help them to do that. So now they're successful, not just professionally, but personally too, which in my opinion is more important, right? Because at the end of the day, that's the stuff that you're going to remember and that's going to matter. You're not going to care what you did at your job. When it's all said and done, you're going to care about the person who's sitting there holding your hand in the rocking chair, looking out at the grandkids playing on the front lawn. Am I right or am I right? I am right. So let's talk about the keys to staying happily married, because whether you're already married or you plan to be, and this is the key, because this is something that I did when I was positioning myself to really be in a happy, healthy relationship with a good man after the divorce and the end of my first marriage, before I met my husband, was I got into the mindset of, once I made the choice that I wanted to be in a new relationship, I started like watching Say Yes to the Dress and sitting there and watching these women pick out their wedding dresses and crying with them and really getting into the emotion and the feeling of it happening to me, so that I was already making it a new reality for me, even though at, 34, 35, it felt like, only people in their 20s are able to find love really quick or whatever. I didn't know the timeline, right? But I still was committed to the fact that I knew I wanted to be married again. And so I started thinking about that, dreaming about that, not from a place of, desperation or neediness or anything like that, but rather as a natural desire and a choice that I made, that I wasn't interested in doing life alone. I want someone to share it with. I love having companionship, a partner, and all that kind of stuff. So, and then just 1 year after my divorce was final, I ended up meeting my husband now. So it was really just 18 months after my divorce was final that I was married to my current husband and the love of my life. And we've been married now for almost 10 years. And so I can tell you that everything that I teach, help my clients do, et cetera, it's real because I don't just have the receipts from the testimonies of my clients, but my own life is my biggest receipt, right? Okay, so the keys to staying happily married. So the first key is one that I know that you have heard before, and that is communicate openly and honestly, right? So really when it comes to communication, you've got to be willing to be vulnerable and share your thoughts and your feelings with your husband, and then really listen when he speaks, because it's not always, the easiest thing for a man to express their emotions. And what you have to understand is that the difference between you and your husband is, whereas as a woman, you have multiple relationships, with all different kinds. Women tend to have with friends, many relationships where they share emotional things and talk about private things. Men don't do that. They have one sole confidant. That's their wife. And so if he's pouring out his heart to you, then you need to honor that and really listen to what he's saying and be there for him. Don't dismiss it. Men and women are not designed the same. We don't communicate the same. And so you need to honor when he trusts you with his heart, because you truly are the person that he trusts with his heart, the only one. In fact, I was reading an article that said that one of the reasons why men, like older men, when their wives die, the reason why they tend to get remarried faster is for the very reason I just said, is because their wife was their sole confidant, and the loneliness they just don't know they can't do it. It's too painful. They don't have literally anyone to talk to. Whereas sometimes women who are older, when they lose their husband, they tend to go on because they have, outside relationships with their female friends that they're able to talk and, pour out their heart and have that emotional support, because they have that support system. And so they're kind of able to go on. And so sometimes that's why you don't necessarily see, older women get remarried, but you think, oh, he's just getting remarried fast because he wants to have sex. And it's not really about that. It's really about that bond that he had with his wife, and he doesn't have it anymore. And once a man has that, he's given his heart to someone and now they're gone. Who is he? He's got to give it to somebody, right? And so I share that with you to say that when your husband trusts you with his heart, don't dismiss that. Honor that and take it seriously. It's a privilege. Just like it's a privilege for him to honor and hold you, you got to be there for him too, okay? The second key that I'm going to share is you also want to, and by the way, in case you didn't notice, I'm speaking to the wives. My audience is not men and women. I'm speaking to women. And so the second key is to show your husband that you appreciate and are grateful for him, so that he feels loved and valued. So yes, I am a firm believer in having high standards. I'm a woman that had high standards. I was never going to marry a man who didn't have a steady job that he'd had for some time, that wasn't responsible with money. I wasn't going to be with someone who couldn't pay the bills, that wasn't a good provider. What's interesting though is even when me and my husband first got married, I actually made a little bit more money than he did. Okay. But I was okay with that because he was still responsible with the money that he had. He didn't have a lot of debt, all of those things. And guess what? Within a year or two, he was the main breadwinner. And now he's the only one that works a 9 to 5 because I work for myself. And his income has more than doubled, since we've been together. Well, yeah, more than that. Because, that's what we have been able to build together. But I just share that with you to say that, yes, we all want a good provider. We want a man to bring certain things to the table, but we never want to treat him like we are entitled to it. Don't act like you are entitled to that. Even though, yes, that is your standard. Yes, that is your requirement. Yes, that is what he takes pride in and joy in being able to give you, taking care of his family financially, spiritually, mentally, emotionally, etc. He takes pride in that. You still want to show your gratitude for it. You want to say thank you. You want to express your gratitude in prayer to God for him. Don't just take it for granted like he better had or whatever, because if that's your attitude, If that's your attitude, then you really need to check yourself, because you got some stuff going on from your past that's really getting in the way of you understanding how to receive and accept the love of a good man. Okay? So the next thing is, you definitely want to make sure that you are doing your part to keep the romance and the fire burning. Okay? Because let's face it, that, as life gets busy, that spark can flicker, or especially after having kids, and especially when they're little, time has just become something, free time, I should say, becomes a thing of the past. It's just like, what you talking about? It's just kids, kids, kids. But you really want to make time for each other, and whatever those date nights look like. It doesn't have to be you getting dressed up and going to a restaurant. It can just be being consistent at getting your kids to bed. I'm going to tell you as a side point, I have always, since my kids were babies, because my son was a preemie, I had an app that I used that tracked all his stuff, like how many times I was nursing him, how many hours he was sleeping, et cetera, et cetera. And because it had that feature to track his sleep, I was actually able to eventually see his patterns. And when I learned his patterns, I understood when his nap time needed to be. And then I understood when to put him to sleep. See, I don't believe in, this is a really big side point, I don't believe in something called sleep training, whatever that is. I believe children know how to sleep. Okay? We all do. And it's our job to get on board with their natural body cycle, not try to put them on a 40-hour work week cycle, which is not natural for them. That's why they're crying. That's why they're unhappy. I mean, that's a whole nother, like I said, I can go off on a whole big thing about that, because, but I'm not. But my point is, as I digress, my point is to get your kids in bed early, okay? If they're under 5, they ought to be in bed by 7:30, so you can have the evening, not only just for you and your husband, but for yourself, honey. You need time for yourself. To take a chill, eat your cookies like I do, because I don't drink wine. I've just, I never acquired a taste for alcohol, whatever. But yeah, I like to sit down and eat my sweets and watch TV for a minute, get my bearings. And then, we can hang out and do something. But I share that with you to say that that is something that you can help contribute to, so that flicker and flame has time to burn. And if you two can come together on that and be consistent about keeping your kids on a schedule and a routine, not that's convenient for you, but that works for their development, which is going to bed early, then trust me, you're never going to look back and go, oh man, we should have let them know you. Yes, they're going to get up early, but guess what? They were going to get up early anyway. And that's the thing about little kids. So capitalize on that going to bed early, so you can have some evening time with your man, because he wants you. Now, the other key is to keep learning and growing together. And this is so important, because marriage changes over time. Like I said, you have kids, you can have some losses, you can go through job changes, whatever, just life happens, and that can really put strain on that relationship. And so you want to make sure that you don't allow those challenges to cause you to grow apart. And so you want to continue investing into your relationship, like reading personal development and relationship books, staying on the same page spiritually, so that you're keeping your bond and your commitment strong, and even working with a coach like myself. I only work with women, right? I don't work with couples. I'm not a marriage counselor. I'm not any of that. Couples therapist. No, I only work with women, because I understand that the only person that you have the ability to change is you. And so I am a firm and passionate believer in women not suffering in silence in toxic relationships, but rather having happy, healthy, fulfilling relationships where they are powerful co-creators with their husband in a relationship that thrills them both. And so in order to do that, I love to empower my clients to become happy, healed, and whole, and show up in their relationship at 110%, giving it their all. And you will be shocked at how that will move and motivate your husband to match that, to also show up. If he's a good man and you guys have a solid foundation and you really love each other, when he sees the change in you, trust and believe, he's going to be like, oh, I got to step it up. And he will, because that's the kind of man that you married. Okay. So make sure, like I said, that you don't let life come between the two of you, and you don't let the challenges come between the two of you. stay together, roll with the punches together. I know with my husband and I, when we lost our first son, that was obviously especially challenging. We were married about 2 years. Almost 2 years when he died. And that was it was just horrible. I mean, I know if you have kids, you're like, I can't even imagine. And you're right. It is the worst thing that ever happens to you. Okay. But it didn't push us apart. It didn't cause us to, because a lot of couples end up getting divorced after they lose a child because they just can't move past it or get over it or whatever. My husband did have kind of like more of a delayed reaction. When something traumatic happens, it's fight, flight, or freeze, and he kind of got frozen there emotionally for a while. But we already had such a solid relationship. I already knew who he was and who we were, so I understood what was happening. And so I was able to hold space for him. I'm not saying I held it perfectly, but you get impatient sometimes, especially when you're pregnant, because then we ended up having our daughter. But my point is I understood who he was, and I didn't allow his pain that he was dealing with in his own silent way to cause me to lose faith in him. Not at all. And let me tell you, honey, when he became unfrozen, as it were, it's like we picked up where we left off, but even better. Because when you go through challenges together like that as a couple, and you stick together with God's help, of course, and you become unbreakable. I'm just telling you, it's like nothing. It's like cement. Our relationship, we were literally having this conversation earlier, and I was just saying one of the things that I love is it's like, it still feels like it did when we were dating. We're still as silly and giddy and whatever, and we have, these little kids running around, and we're making like these, innuendo comments that they can't tell now, but when they get older, they're like, ew, mom and dad, you guys are so gross. That's all right. Be glad your parents love each other. You know what I'm saying? So anyway, I say all that to say that life is going to happen, but you can get through those times together if you have already decided that nothing is going to tear you apart. If you've made that decision that nothing is going to tear you apart, nothing will tear you apart, okay? That's a whole nother episode I'm going to have to do on the power of decision. Now, another key, do not lose yourself, okay? As women, we have a very real tendency to do this, which is why it is so important to maintain your own sense of self within your marriage. You want to make time for the things that interest you, for your hobbies, for your, friendships and things like that, because it's going to allow you to be happier overall and therefore a better wife, a better mother, a better friend. I know for me, when I had my daughter, that was back in 2020. And for a minute there, I thought about, well, I'll just, throw in the towel on this coaching business and, and that'll be that. And I'll just be about my kids or whatever. I'm at home with them regardless, right? But what happened is when she was about 3 months old, I got a call from a lady who had been referred by a previous client, and she just wouldn't take no for an answer. And so I took her on as a client. And then like a week later, another lady called me, and she insisted on coming on board. And so I ended up having 2 clients. I hadn't done any marketing or anything, and working with them and helping them and seeing the transformation in them. It just, again, reignited that spark in me, because what I do is not just about, it's not like a job. It's like, this is my gift. This is what I do. This is it. True. It's a gift. It's like, I'm just able to see behind the scenes when I'm talking to a woman and understand really what's behind her challenges. And I can see and understand exactly what we need to do in order to get her to the other side so that she can have what she wants. And for me, it's easy, but for her, it's not. And that's why she's hiring me. And the same thing is true of me. There are things that are not easy for me that I hire other people to help me with. So anyway, I just share that to say that what drew me back was, yes, these 2 clients, but also it was because it was clients I was working with that were adult women. I'm having adult conversations, whereas I was at that time with a newborn and a 2-year-old. And To be able to stand in my power and in my gifts as a grown adult woman felt really, really good. And it was like a way for me to just flex and exercise a part of myself that I didn't get to use that often. And so I share that with you to say, and mind you, my coaching business is a business. It is not a hobby. Okay. But it is an interest. I am very interested and committed to what it is that I do. But I just share that with you, that if you've got something that you really enjoy, that you're really good at, that's your gift, it's your passion, etc., make time for it, because you're going to show up better by indulging that, as long as it's not something that you shouldn't be doing, I don't know. We're talking about good habits, good things. But for me, being a coach, has been awesome because I'm in the personal development space. And so I have to continue to grow and transform in order to be better at what I do. And of course, that also makes me grow and transform and become better at who I am being. I have identity shifts all the time. I've continued to upgrade my thinking, my mindset, etc. And so therefore my children have a better mother and my husband has a better wife. And that, so it works out for everybody. And so that's my point, is make sure you make time, and also make time for your friends too. No, y'all not going to be sitting on the phone talking for 5 hours anymore if you've got little kids like me, but going out for dinner, getting out of the house and being with your friends. And again, having that adult conversation, just talking about whatever, is going to be so just refreshing, to your mentality, and help you to continue being a great wife. Now, another key, and this is actually going to be the last key that I'm going to share with you in this episode, is that nobody is perfect, okay? And so there's going to be times when you and your husband will make mistakes or have disagreements. So you want to be forgiving and understanding towards him, and try to find a solution that works for both of you. Resolve your conflicts and such in a healthy way. Don't let it turn into like bigger problems and stuff. And here's the biggest piece of advice I can give you is cover over the small things with love. Cover them over with love, not the big stuff. I'm not talking about being in denial and turning a blind eye to stuff that needs to be addressed. I'm talking about that in this day and age of where everybody is into, feelings and emotions and therapy and all this and that. Sometimes I had a client, and she actually met, because of our work together, actually met a really great guy. And he actually was someone that had already been in her life. But now she could see him, right? Because she was no longer attracted to toxicity, because we worked on healing the things from her past and from her childhood that were causing her to be drawn to men in relationships that were damaging to her. And he had a very healthy way of communicating. But sometimes, I was like, listen, I know that you guys talk about everything and you're doing great, but I want you to understand that you don't need to talk about everything to death. You don't need to discuss every single time you don't agree, he doesn't agree with something you said or whatever. I said at some point you're going to have to recognize the fact that you guys are two different people, two different cultures, two different backgrounds. And sometimes it's not about right or wrong. Sometimes it's just about different. Cover it over with love. Quit complaining about stuff that don't matter. We're not about to sit up here and be talking about the minutia and details of every single solitary thing. I said, because if you keep doing that, you guys are going to get on each other's nerves. I said, nobody wants to talk about stuff to death. You know what I'm saying? Like, you don't have to be on the same page about every single solitary thing. You just have to have enough respect and understanding for each other to honor each other's differences. Not anything, toxic or whatever. We're not talking about those things. These are just differences. Things that you choose differently because you're two different, imperfect individuals. So yes, resolve those conflicts and disagreements, but do your best to cover over the little small things with love. You don't have to bring up every single thing that he does, and vice versa, because nobody wants to feel nitpicked, and nobody wants to feel like the other person is just looking at them to zap them when they say or do something wrong. If you acknowledge the good things about your husband, if you focus on everything that he's doing right, and you show that gratitude like we talked about earlier, and you point out his good qualities and things like that, you're going to get more of that. Whatever you focus on is what you get more of. You're going to see him through a lens of like, wow, he is so amazing. And because you're speaking life into him, that's who he's going to become more of for you. Okay. And, I share all of this with you, not just because, oh, this is something I read in a book. No. Like I shared at the very beginning, I've been happily married now for almost a decade. And if you listen to last season, then you know a little bit about my past life, if you want to call it that. But, really, if you count my first marriage, I've got over 20 years experience being married. So doing it wrong the first time and, getting it wrong. And then, of course, getting it right this time. So I know what it takes to keep things moving in the right direction, and especially how to get them back on track when life throws things off, okay? You already know that marriage is a journey and it requires work. However, if you focus on building, this strong foundation based on trust, mutual respect, and love, you can build a marriage that is happy and fulfilling for both you and your husband. Like I said earlier, I'm living it, and I help my clients to do the same. So if you're married to a good man and want to take your marriage from good to great, or if things are not going as smoothly as you would like, you are more than welcome to reach out to me and we can have a brief conversation. You can visit me at CoachJamila.com, where you'll find all the links to my social media, and you can send me a message on Facebook. You can send me a message on Instagram, or you can message me actually right there on my site. I have that little chat box thing. And I am so glad that you stopped by today to listen, and I will see you next time. Thank you for listening to today's episode. Be sure to visit CoachJamila.com, where you'll find the links to connect with me on social media and more information on my private bespoke coaching for Type A high-performing women executives and entrepreneurs.